many women lack a theological framework to think about what God's call in their life looks like. Often our faith communities will speak very highly to marriage and family, but they won't give us a compelling, robust vision of God's call for women to work. And by work, I don't mean collecting a paycheck or going to the corner office to work. I mean creatively engaging, productively engaging our world. And so when women have a theological framework, it creates a sense of freedom. It creates a sense of energy and optimism about how they will steward their gifts regardless of their stage or role in life. And we look at God calling men and women together in the stewardship, the care, and the cultivation of the earth. And so suddenly you realize, from the very beginning, God has called men and women to be working together. And throughout Scripture, you see this unique partnership of men and women. Sometimes it's through a marriage-family relationship. Sometimes it's a uniquely collaborative relationship between men and women. You see that in Jesus' life. But you see the sense of working together that is woven into God's design for His people. Men play a powerful role in helping women fully achieve their potential. It feels almost anti-feminist to say that, and that's not what I intend at all. But I think men are critical champions for women in the workplace. And so a couple places that I would start. The first would be for men having a deep theological, spiritual foundation for the value and contribution of women. The idea that God calls men and women to work together. And so we want to create an environment where both men and women are well represented and that their gifts are welcomed and allowed to thrive. When men see that as a biblical conviction, beyond just a social movement like feminism, suddenly a commitment to create a workplace where both genders can thrive becomes more important. It gains spiritual importance in addition to just responding to cultural demands. Helping men recognize individual biases that would keep them from inviting and drawing out women's leadership is another thing that can be vital. From a Christian perspective, we're called to respond to something different than the ways of the world. We're called to have a distinctive influence on culture. And I would say Christian men can be leaders in this, that we can be restoring strained and broken relationships. In this era of Me Too, there is an understandable fear in male-female interaction in the workplace. It doesn't surprise me that some men would be hesitant to have close working relationships with female colleagues. In fact, a friend of mine had referred to me as Pollyanna-ish because I suggested that men and women should work together more closely. What I would say is that I think that hesitancy and that fear is real. Based on what we've seen, there is a place for concern about appropriateness in male-female relationships. But as Christians, we're called to live courageously and to live creatively, and I would say that's a place where Christians can have a unique influence in creating restored relationships between men and women that are both morally appropriate and honoring of relationships outside the workplace. When I think about men and women working well together, I see the church as really the headwaters on this issue. And it starts with some of the fundamental assumptions that we teach, we allow it to continue about work. So if conversations in the local church about faith and work are somewhat rare, thankfully it's changing, it's growing, which is wonderfully encouraging. Conversations about women and work are almost non-existent. And yet when you look at Scripture, that God has called both men and women to work, again, not necessarily collect a paycheck, but to the sense of the productive stewardship of our own gifts and our own opportunities. When you realize that men and women are both called, that they're called together, we want to speak to women about their calling. We want to ignite their vocational imagination in areas that are beyond marriage and motherhood. That does not mean that we diminish marriage and motherhood in any way at all. It's just that we broaden the frame in how we talk about men and women. And in broadening the frame, we bring greater freedom for women to fully steward their gifts. And so we need to encourage churches to be broadening the conversation and creating more vocational imagination for the women in their congregations.